Hello, welcome to One Moment Wiser. This is Christy Bridges, and you need to call your friends and your family and everybody do a watch party on this interview. I sat in church Wednesday night in a really interesting group that our church has begun to do, which I think every church should do. And this guest, Kara Moseby, shared with us things that just like everything she said, my brain went, oh, I've been there. Oh, I've been there. Oh, we need to change that. And it was, yes. So if you ever have times with your family or your friends or people at work or even strangers where suddenly you're in a conversation and all of a sudden you've frozen up and you just want the conversation to stop, or you find yourself getting louder, then this discussion is for you. So set aside your distractions and tune in. So I'm going to introduce Kara a little bit so you understand who she is and what she does. First of all, I'm Christy Bridges from One Moment Wiser, if you've never watched one of these. And Kara is Kara Moseby from the Trove. She is actually got an online fabric or a clothing store because she has a passion for ethical fashion. Now, she comes from the nonprofit world where she worked for 12 years with men and women struggling with homelessness and addiction. And so she's not just about fashion, she's about empowering people to support themselves and to live healthy, good lives and take care of their families. Kara also recognizes in the fashion industry that there's a whole lot of pollutants that come from this industry. And so her sources that she gets her clothing from are zero waste sources. Zero waste, ethically run, empowering people. I mean, how do you not do this, right? So, Kara, I'm going to let you tell more about that in a little bit. But first of all, let's talk about why I got so excited on Wednesday night. So, Wednesday night, we met at a group called Reflect at Believers Church in Tulsa. And this group is brand new, but you and another couple have begun leading this group to help Christians, to help us in the body learn to communicate with one another without ignoring the difficult topics like politics and without expecting everybody to believe the same way we do. You've actually begun giving us space to practice having conflict, having contradictory opinions, and learning more about one another and increasing our relationships through that. And I'm so grateful that you've been doing that. What got you into that kind of thing? You went from fashion into helping people learn to communicate. Why?
Well, thanks for having me on. How did I get into this topic with Reflect? That is hard. So one of the things, I think outside the box most of the time. And so I am usually listening to all sides of the story. And I've just kind of learned that if I want to have friends, I have to be okay with thinking differently and us being okay in relationship. And one of the things I was teaching on this week was that we keep relationship bigger than the problem. So that's, yeah, I feel like if I'm going to have friends, I've got to learn how to have the hard conversations and still keep our ability to be relational on. And I really learned that through a ministry called Thrive, where they teach you the basics of what we call 19 relational skills for healthy relationships, from relationship with God to relationship with other people and relationship with self. Um, so yeah, I've been through their 3-year training, and I think you put in the notes, Transforming Fellowship talks about the 19 relational skills, and they are golden. So
Nice. So let me back up. You worked with Thrive and you learned 19 relational skills. Now, I thought I knew everything about relationships. I got like 4 skills, I swear. Like
yeah.
make people laugh, hug people when they need it, feed people, and try not to get loud, right? So 19 relationship skills. And
Mm-hmm.
so you learn about that in Thrive. And um, was that something that you used in working, in ministry with homelessness and addiction?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Because when you're growing up, you should learn healthy relationship skills from your main caregiver or your parents. They should be passing those skills on to you. So we're going to talk about relational surrogates tonight, and we call that like skill 0. But then skill 1 is to share joy. And joy comes from eye contact, smiling, showing someone that you're glad to be with them. And I mean, you think of an infant when they're born, they come out and you hand them to mom, and how we were designed, mom should go, and that
Right.
child has done nothing except for be. But yet mom is smiling into that child's face and saying, you are worth and value. So she's passing on joy to them. So when most of the time in addiction recovery, for sure, the men and women that I've worked with, they don't have those relational skills. And so even telling them that I'm glad to be with you can be life transforming for them. And then the other skills that it goes through are just the foundation that they need to live, that we all need to live a life of recovery. So,
So often you're right, we either um, don't learn the right skills from our family, or family, treats us in such a way that what we do learn is the opposite of everything they try to teach us. And in either case, there's a healthier way.
mm-hmm.
And sometimes we end up in addiction or alone with no support because we've learned behaviors that push people away,
Mm-hmm.
that isolate us. And so I'm so glad that you're teaching skills that can help us, everybody communicate better. But I can see where you're coming from, that we can persist in what's always been normal for us
Mm-hmm.
and possibly end up driving people away,
Yeah.
or we can try something that takes a little work and is a little uncomfortable,
Yeah, for sure.
but helps us to grow relationships and also to minister to others.
Mm-hmm.
I have an example of that. I Years ago, my current husband and I, 24 years, totally God, man. But we had gotten to the point where, I was always doing my own thing. He was doing his own thing. We were just kind of living in the same house and, eating meals occasionally together to catch up. And I read this book. I think it was what what men wish women knew about men, or I don't know. It was some kind of book. And I read this, and one of the things that I learned from that was to light up when my husband came in the
Mm-hmm.
room. Little tiny trick,
Yeah.
but it's exactly what you're just talking about. The mom looking at her baby going, you know,
Yeah.
and when we light up in recognition of someone, instead of staring at our phones and talking to them while we do things and,
Right.
never looking them in the face, when we light up, that nurtures that relationship, that re-sparks something. And that happens with strangers too. Boy, I tell you what, when
Mm-hmm.
your checkout person realize that you're actually looking at them for a second, you know, that
Yep.
just, it warms people. So that's a neat
Yeah.
trick that you've already shared with us. So
Yeah.
why does it matter that people who aren't in dire situations, you know, who aren't dealing with addiction, who aren't homeless, or who aren't, you know, alone, why does it matter if you have some friends that you learn how to talk about deeper things with them and actually things that are uncomfortable?
That's a good question. Why is it important? Oh, I could go with several
So
directions in
many
that.
directions, right?
We've actually found my husband and I have found, so Zach and Lauren, who led on mediation the week before I led, um, they're some of our dearest friends. And I have learned so much from them on, okay, this is how I see the world and how I'm experiencing it. Is that the same from you? Because my experience of the world is my experience of the world. Now there's definitely truth, hardcore truth. Um, but how we experience the world, how we experience life is different. And so to only see it from my point of view, or to only surround myself with people who look and think and work and do all the same things that I do, is not giving me even a full, beautiful picture of God's creation, right? So our family is huge on hanging out with people from all over the world. And the thing we love about it is that they know something about Jesus that I don't know,
That is awesome.
because he is celebrated and worshiped in their culture in a different way than he is in mine. And so understanding them helps bring more life and full life to even my faith journey. So did that answer your question? It kind of went off a little bit.
That is just beautiful to me. No, you're exactly right. It opens up our world to other possibilities we wouldn't have thought of, other ways of looking even at God, which is, I think that's wonderful. How can we not appreciate that? Some of the things that I found too is that at some point, you're going to discover that someone you know doesn't think like you. We
Yeah,
have
for sure.
this I did a series on heuristics a long time ago where it's our brain's little autopilot functions.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a heuristic, the illusion of transparency, that makes
Mm-hmm.
us think that once we've asked all those initial questions and gotten to know someone, we stop asking questions because we start to assume that we're exactly alike, because the
Yeah.
initial getting to know someone is all about finding the things we have in common. We come home and we have so much in common,
I know, right?
and then we stop seeking differences, and then someday we're totally stunned to find
Mm-hmm.
out that this person isn't exactly like us, that actually thinks that people should behave differently than we do, or that people should believe differently than we do. And we can reduce that shock if we just keep asking questions.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you have something that you shared Wednesday that is the whole, I just, man, I want this everywhere. Can you walk us through your relationship circuitry discussion?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah,
So, I was saying earlier that it's important to make sure that we keep relationships bigger than the problem. And the caveat to that is healthy situations. There are obviously very unhealthy situations where we don't need to be in relationship. But if we can keep relationship bigger than the problem, that's golden. And part of that is having a skill called what we call skill zero, which is relational circuits. So if you think of your ability to be relational as a circuit board, when we're able to be relational, we're communicating well, all the lights are on, things are going well. And then something happens and that circuit board either dims or it just crashes. And so that's when we need to be paying attention to get the circuit board back on and functioning, because our ability to be relational, it's responsible for so much, like, in addiction recovery, controlling cravings. It helps us explore new solutions, helps us actually form in groups together and bond. It distinguishes, and this comes in handy with trauma, distinguishing between current and past events. It helps us resolve conflict. And if you think about it, most of the time in my relationship with my husband, we're trying to solve problems when our relational circuits are off. Something has sparked for my relational circuits to go off, and we keep going. We keep trying to solve the problem, and we're not able to be relational to actually solve it. So, I got my notes here. So, being relational helps us with our willpower, attuning. Can you hear my kids? Knocking on the door.
So I'm going to reiterate something while you tell them that you're on the computer. You just said something really cool. I used to know a couple where they would get into something when, she was tired or he had just gotten home from a stressful day, and then they would not let each other rest until it was resolved. They had this determination. They had to keep poking at it, and that did not lead to very fun evenings.
Yeah.
Event led to divorce. Well, that was so unnecessary.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is our relational circuits, a lot of times we start trying to deal with difficult things when they're already offline for some reason, tiredness, stress, or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we pushed into overwhelm, which is a different topic. So they were relational circuits off, and then I'm overwhelmed, but we've got to solve it. So let's keep pushing. So, it helps you. Relational circuits help you attune as well and reflect and be flexible. Use all your senses to help resolve conflict, regulate your emotions, all the things you need to do when in those situations. So, yeah.
Nice.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Do you want me to tell you the signs that they're off? Okay. So there's 8 statements that if you answer yes to any of these, your relational circuits are either dim or they're off. So the first one is, I just want to make a problem, a person, or a feeling go away. Let's just get this over with and move on. Good sign that they're off. I don't want to listen to what others feel or say. My mind is stuck onto something that's upsetting. I don't want to be connected to and insert someone you usually like. So if I'm in a hard discussion with my husband and I don't want to be with him and I usually like to be connected to him, it's a good sign that they're off. I just want to get away, fight, or freeze. This one is what I see a lot. I more aggressively interrogate, blame, or try to fix others. If I can just fix you and fix your thinking, then we'll be golden. Which is, when we think about these hard conversations that we're having in Reflect group, when you get into the political conversation with your family at Thanksgiving, you're always trying to fix the other person, so yeah. The other one, number 7, is my cravings become huge. And that's, I joke that my go-to is fries and a Coca-Cola. So
if we're having a conversation and suddenly you're like, hey, you want to go to Brahms?
And that's my go-to place.
Awesome. But that will let me know that we're getting a little overwhelmed.
Yeah, for sure. And the last one is I can't feel appreciation. So, I could, when my relational circuits are on, I could tell you probably 10 stories right offhand of things I appreciate about my husband. But if I can't feel those, if I'm just making a list to make a list, I can't actually engage in that appreciation and the emotion, the feelings of it. It's pretty classic, my relational circuits, or for short, sometimes we call them RCs. So my RCs
Mhm.
are off. So,
And in a marriage, sometimes people, withhold affection because they're like, you can't um, make me feel this way and then try to be lovey, and that is, um, unfortunately, it can lead to years of loneliness if we don't realize that we need to pay attention when the person we care about is offline. We need to pay attention when we're ourselves are
yeah.
offline or feeling these things. But we also need to listen and look, observe, and pay attention to the signs that someone we care about is offline. So what do
For
we
sure.
do if I all of a sudden am like desperate for brownies? Then when I'm in a conversation with someone, then what do we do to regain ourselves other than just saying, okay, bye?
Let's agree to disagree. Um, so, the quickest way is appreciation. So, if you're able to do that together, you're like in graduate school of relational circuits. But if you need to take a break, say, hey, can we step back for 10 minutes and I need to get my relational circuits back on? Or if you guys don't have that language, just say, hey, I need a breather, and sit and actually engage in appreciation. So when I say engage in appreciation, I don't mean make a list. I'm thankful for the sunshine and I have a house, I have this, I have that. But actually, like, remember a time that Jesus gave you a gift, and where you can actually, when you re-engage with that story, you can feel the appreciation come up. Or I remember there's this time when we had guests over to our house, and I'm not a clean freak, but my husband knows when we have people over that I'm always a little bit more on edge about that. And the current house we were in, the floors would just get terribly dirty. And I was just spiraling, and I look over and my husband is on his hands and knees scrubbing the floor.
Oh,
And it
so many points.
no, I know. And it wasn't that he was cleaning, it was that he saw me. He
Yes.
saw what I needed. He was serving me. So if I
Oh,
can sit and actually engage in that story, and even the feelings that you're expressing to me right now, re-engage them myself. Now, if I were to go, I remember that time that Josh cleaned the floors and that was great. I'm not actually engaging in the story. So if I can engage in the appreciation, that's the quickest way to get them back on.
mm.
So there are also some different tapping and exercises you can do.
Yeah,
So
sure.
I love these. So I do them 3 times each. I don't know if there's a science behind the 3. It's just what I do. So there's a tapping. And so when you breathe in, you tap. And then when you exhale, you massage. And then we say out loud, when I'm afraid, I will trust in you, O Lord. So we go, when I'm afraid, I will trust in you, O Lord. When I'm afraid, I will trust in you, O Lord. When I'm afraid, I will trust in you, O Lord.
Mm. I love that. Although probably I would be saying, man, the wrath of man does not create God's righteousness.
Yeah.
Something I've had to remind myself of many, many times.
Yeah.
I'm not normally an angry person, but I am kind of a control. I have been in the past kind of a controlling person, and thankfully, my husband and God have helped me with that a lot.
Yeah.
But
So
yes,
there's
that
actually, I can't
awesome.
remember the study, but there was actually a study in Canada where they, with special needs adults, they would do these, and they would do like a poem or a rhythm of saying
Yeah,
afterwards. And that it was the words that also helped with the tapping. So we put a
definitely.
scripture in there. And
And
so,
the word does not return void,
right.
and we can have our minds full of scripture, but saying it, breathing it out, praying it
Mm-hmm.
just does. I mean, God knows psychology. He made us, and we are fascinating. We still
Yeah.
haven't figured out all the cool triggers that He planted in us that can help us thrive. And that it's neat
Mm-hmm.
that you shared that with us. So the
Yeah.
tapping and as it with a deep
Yeah.
breath, and then the letting out with a scripture and a massage. Oh, how can
Mm-hmm.
you beat it?
Yep.
So
Yeah.
what else do you
So there are
do?
two more. There's a
Mm-hmm.
yawning one, and do it to the side just so if you're with someone, you're not yawning in their face. But when I'm afraid, I will trust in you, O Lord. And if you can't get it, a real yawn, you can like move your chin a little bit, and it'll kind of engage a yawn for
Ah,
you. So, and then the last one is my absolute favorite, but it scares everybody else. So I'm pretty sure I'm the only one that loves it. But if you've
I
ever
loved
seen,
it.
I'm glad to hear it because people are like, eh. And my warning is if you're driving right now, don't be scared about what I'm about to do, or don't tell your friend about it while they're driving because it will scare them. I did do that to my husband.
And don't do it while your hands are supposed to be on the wheel. Yeah.
Exactly. So it's
That's
called the
so
moral
scary.
reflex. So if you have ever seen a baby just like, that's actually resetting their nervous system. So that's what we do. We go, when I'm afraid, I will trust in you, O Lord. When I'm afraid, I will trust in you, O Lord. So actually pull the arms back. You can't see my arms here, but pull them back. And I even get the tension because that pulls and helps that tension that's in my chest. So that's my favorite. I usually will
I
go to, I'll excuse myself to go to the bathroom to do that one. The yawning one, you can do it in the middle of conversation. People don't know you're resetting your system. But that one I usually go to the bathroom for.
I like that though. I actually discovered a few years ago when I was actually concerned that I was, maybe having heart problems or something. And then I realized that what was happening was I would go faster and faster and faster and faster and get tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter. And my chest would just be like a fist. And
Mm-hmm.
when I recognize that, I pull back and I breathe and that kind of thing. And it's it's made a world of difference. And my brother's a massage therapist, so he's the one that first helped me to realize just how tight I
Yeah.
was from holding like that all the time. And I like that. And the whole like breath thing and letting it out
Mm-hmm.
really does do that thing where relaxation specialists tell you, tense everything up and then
Yeah.
slowly let it out. That kind of does it all in an instant.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
fantastic.
I
So
love that.
in a
That's how I do some
way,
resting practices and by tensing up my whole body and then touching to tell myself to calm down.
nice. And so that actually helps you ignore the craving for Coke and fries because I'm like kind of impressed.
If I'm using it as a way to not deal with my pain or then yes. But if it's just there are definitely times I just want French fries.
I
But
gotcha. So,
one of the things
hey, French fries can be had.
yeah, one of the things they teach in Thrive is that we use what we call beeps to
Mhm.
deal with pain and not stay connected in our pain. So we say beeps are behaviors, events, experiences, people, or substances that we use to deal with pain instead of staying connected to God, others, and ourselves. To those three healthy
Ooh.
relationships that He's designed for us to have. And so, in the recovery program that I worked in, once in a while, the ladies would look at me and go, Kara, beep, beep. It's like, yep, I've got a beep going on right now. I'm going to deal with it, I promise. So,
Oh, that's one thing. We talked about stepping away, and sometimes, in stepping away, what people do is they find someone else
Yeah.
to vent to about the person they're having the trouble with. And
Mm-hmm.
that, I'm sure can be useful in some situations, but that's not always best for the friendship, but it's also
Yeah.
not always best for us when we take
Mm-hmm.
a moment to say, Lord, why is this bothering me so
Mm-hmm.
much? Um, I've had to go, why, God, is why am I feeling this way? I don't like this. It's ugly, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of find the root and ask God to heal that spot. And the only way we do that is by actually taking that time to ask the questions of ourselves. You know,
Yeah.
having difficult conversations isn't always with other people, is it?
Yeah. Yeah. Staying connected.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and that would be
So,
the going to people instead of staying connected for sure. And even like, so joy is knowing that someone is glad to be with you. And so in that pain, what you just described is in your pain, if we can connect with Jesus, because he's glad to be with us when we're angry, when we're sad, when we feel shame, he's glad to be with us. And um, that's the first, like, if something was triggered that was actually wrong, yeah, sure. But staying connected. Jesus is glad to be with us. So let's return to joy and let's work through that in a joyful relationship. So,
mm. And when we do that, we can remember who we are.
yeah.
Because sometimes, especially when we're dealing with people from our past,
Mm-hmm.
people in our family who've known us all our lives, people, from high school or from older times in our lives, being around them can trigger us to go back to some of those behaviors and
Yeah.
those ways of interacting and those feelings, and reminding ourselves of our relationship with Jesus, refocusing, Lord, hey, you're here. It's nice to have you here.
Yeah.
Helps remind us who we are today, that they may not have seen the transition, but we are a different person today than we were, 10 years ago or 20 years ago.
Yeah, for sure. Let's have the emotional maturity to live in that identity, even if they don't
Yes.
have the maturity to recognize it, for sure.
So there's two kinds of appreciation that you've talked about then. In the one hand, appreciating the fact that God is here. He is happy we are alive. He isn't surprised by the situation, knows who we are, and is doing something even now in our hearts. So we can appreciate what God has given us. But the other part of appreciation is reminding ourselves of who that person is. And the time that your husband cleaned the floor for you. I can think of so many times that my husband has been kind to me, and that's really cool. The longer you're in a relationship, the more times you come up with like that, if
Yeah.
you're paying attention to one another and going out of your way occasionally to be nice.
Mm-hmm.
Nice goes a long way. But even if it's someone you've just met, in customer service, right? I train customer service
Yeah.
representatives, and sometimes,
Yeah.
but you have to look
They
at the
get the brunt of
person
it.
through. Oh, they do. But you have to look at the person through God's eyes. Lord, what is it
Yeah.
about this person that you made, that you adore?
Mm-hmm.
Right now, they're not displaying that, perhaps, but you helped them save for retirement, which a lot of people don't even save for an emergency.
Mm-hmm.
You help this person stay employed long enough to do so. You help this person have this wife and his kids, or this husband and these kids that are their beneficiaries. Who is this person beyond the screaming voice on this phone?
Yeah.
Lord, help me to see that person. And so there's a lot of times we can use that appreciation to refocus, because ultimately in this world, we're not just service representatives and friends in church and wives. In this world, we are the hands and feet and voice of our Creator, who loves people and
Yeah.
wants to draw them to Him.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Sorry, you get me excited, and I just ramble. You are
And I'm trying not
really,
to overwhelm you with too much information.
I
So I'm like,
love it.
oh, you
I
just
love
mentioned
it.
a different skill.
Yes.
There's actually a skill called God sight.
Is there really?
So
Okay, tell
yeah,
us about this.
I haven't
God
brushed up
sight.
on it recently, but it's essentially what you're saying. Jesus, how do you see this person? Which is
That
one
is
of
so,
the things that we are trying to ground us in Reflect group is, how do you see this person, Lord? How do you want me to see them? So that when you've disagreed, you can see them through the eyes of Jesus in that disagreement. And one of our core values in Reflect is that, I know you love Jesus. And even if I disagree with you, I know we both love Jesus, And so,
yes.
yeah.
It
And I think of
helps.
like when you're in that line at the grocery store and, eye contact and expressing and sharing that joy gives someone so much value. I mean, it's one of the biggest skills we can learn is to share joy with other people, and that eye contact, that smiling, and even expressing those words of appreciation. Like, hey, I really appreciate you helping me with this today. Or I try when I'm on the phone with customer service is to express even how I'm feeling of like, I'm really frustrated right now in my situation. And I know that is, you didn't cause my situation. So I really appreciate you helping me. Even if I sound frustrated, I want to come back to, I know you didn't cause my pain. But thank you for trying to help me through it.
That is
So,
music to a call center rep's ears. Let me just tell you, when we have a caller who says, I know it's not you, I'm just really frustrated, we want to
yeah.
help. That just, when you recognize that we are human and we're here to help you, we want to help you.
Yeah.
There's just, oh,
Yeah.
some people think that by pushing and bullying you get
Mhm.
more help, and that's actually not the case. Let me just make that public service announcement there.
I've actually said to people on the phone, okay, so I realize if I get really mean and rude, then you'll get me to somebody else. But let's skip that. You tell me the
Yes.
key. What do I do? I'm not going to be rude to you. So, but how do we get to the next
See?
person that could help me in this? So, but it's also a check for me
Negotiation.
too, of like not letting my frustration in my situation overwhelm that person. It's a keeping myself in check because I can not do that.
I understand. Yeah, right. We all have the thing that'll send us over the line where we fail to recognize that this other person still has to finish out their whole day, and we're just gonna wreck it 8 o'clock in the
Yeah.
morning. No, I like the negotiation tactic. I don't want to be rude with you. You don't want me to be rude with you. Let's go ahead and skip that. That's fantastic. And when you're trying to accomplish something, negotiation is very useful. When you're just trying to learn about people, it's funny because you mentioned that, and it takes me back to what you said a few minutes ago about when somebody's on a different political side than we are, or has a different frame of mind about something, we want to try to convince them to agree with us, right? And people throw up their defenses when that
Mhm.
happens, and they stop listening to us and start thinking of their next argument. So we're
Mhm.
actually wasting breath when we could just be curious. What brought you
Yeah.
to this conclusion? What values do you see, that this is going to accomplish that my side isn't? Because
Mhm.
in a lot of cases there's a key value that they're aiming at, that we have another key value we're aiming at, but in reality we both have those values. They're
Mhm.
just in different priority places for us,
Right.
or we have more faith that one of these will um, cause a good impact, positive impact, than we do with the other one.
Mhm.
uh, you know
Or
I mean,
who's
I
responsible? or
right, or who's
addressing it.
responsible. Yes, and some a lot of times fear is involved. So
Yeah.
where is your fear in that's driving you to choose one way or another? And I'll just use the uh, political environment as an example, and I'm not going to jump sides or anything, but one side, um, a lot of the people that I care about, one side was really promoting some family values that people cared a lot about. And what was behind that is they wanted to save the lives of children, and they wanted to save heartache for families. Um, and they thought that that side's actions would do that. And the other side was very concerned with the immigrant and the economic justice, and they wanted to make sure that people who were being overlooked were taken care of.
Mhm.
And so on both sides, you have really good things. You
Yeah.
have people who have actually a lot of people who voted maybe this side shared values on this side and vice versa. But when we
Mhm.
started arguing about it and trying to convince each other that our candidate was the one, the other side stopped listening, threw up their
Mhm.
defenses, and so as we're shouting the good things about our candidate, they're shouting the bad things about our candidates. And we
Mhm.
think loyalty means that we can't acknowledge there anything
Yeah.
wrong with
Yeah.
the person we're
They're
defending.
flawed people
Right. No,
in a
no,
flawed system.
no. Exactly. It
Yeah.
takes all of us, and not one of us is perfect, but it takes all of us actually having the conversation about where are these values. Oh, okay, well, let's look at these values and see what we can do about them, no matter
Mhm.
who's up in charge, right? And you've done some really neat, your life is a demonstration of your values. You aren't relying on a person to get elected to make the world a better place. You are actually doing actively what you believe in. And I love that. And anybody who knows me knows that. And I'm going to just talk a little bit about, well, you tell us, I'm not going to tell your story. You tell us about your business, about Trove.
Oh, sure.
And
Yeah.
I'd love to know, like, well, just you tell us. I'd love to know all kinds of stuff.
So we actually, our family, we learned about unethical practices in the coffee industry probably 8 years ago. And
Mm-hmm.
we're just horrified that there are people created in the image of God being treated so horribly. And I'm buying the coffee, which perpetuates. And maybe me buying one fair trade bag of coffee isn't going to change the whole world, but I have this belief that we're not going to be perfect, which is hard for me as an Enneagram 1. But we can slowly make choices that reflect our values.
Yes.
And so we started with fair trade coffee in our home and fair trade chocolate, and which chocolate is really hard. So if you want the semi-sweet chocolate, that's really hard to find.
Right.
So we started mainly with coffee and changed how we purchased that, and then started in other areas of life. So which led to us starting a business in ethical fashion. So we own an ethical fashion brand called Trove, and let me back up. It's hard to know what ethical fashion is. So this is how we define it at Trove. It's fashion and practices that are kind to people, kind to the planet, kind to animals. So, and kindness is really the wrong word when it comes to people, because it's just basic human dignity that you should be paid a livable wage and have safe working conditions. You shouldn't be fearful when you go to work. And you should be paid where you can live and support your family. Um,
Yes.
and that's just
what we think should be happening, but it's not. And so we partner with ethical factories and artisan groups that are ensuring that they're paying livable wages and have safe working conditions. So that's actually why our clothes cost more.
Mm-hmm.
We're used to in the fashion industry, you had 4 seasons. So you would go to a store, you pick out what you like, and the clothes aren't going to change for a few months. But the fashion industry, what we call now, is fast fashion. So a fast fashion store wants you to be able to come into their store every 7 days and see something new. And for you to be able to buy something every week, you can't pay a livable wage. So if you're buying a t-shirt for $5, $8, $10, we break that down to there was shipping costs, there was the material, there was the design process that we paid people and pattern making, all that, then down to the person who's actually making it. How did it only cost that much? And then
I can't have retail therapy unless I'm paying $3.
And that is controlling a craving. It really is.
Yes, you're
because
right.
How many, we call it retail therapy, you know? So, which actually when I'm advertising, I have to be very careful, like not to be like, you need this, you need it now. And I'm like, I don't know that you need it. You should evaluate your closet and see if Trove's beautiful pieces would fit your style, fit your budget, you know, which is not good in advertising. But
it doesn't lead to mass marketing, I'll tell you that. But it does actually, I think, lead to a more satisfying purchase. I love supporting people through different things. You know, if there's a way that I could have someone, you know, take care of something for me and give them a little bit of what God's blessed me with, then I want to do that. If there's a way, you know, if I see an artist who's created something or someone who's supporting their family through this work, then it makes me feel good to buy it. And that doesn't stop me from going garage sailing or Goodwilling, but it does help
me.
Which
is ethical, totally.
Right. But it does help me to really look forward to, you know, payday when I can buy something nice from this and know that, you know, somebody's getting to make dinner or, you know, buy their own curtains for their little house, you know, do something for their family. And you actually have put the faces of the people that you're helping on your website, which I think is super neat. I love that. I ran across Claudine, and she's when she was a child, she was sponsored through Compassion, and we've been sponsoring kids through Compassion for years. And I so believe in what they do, the way they teach children who grew up in those mindsets we were talking about earlier, that were without the without getting the behavioral skills that they needed, you know, from their parents, perhaps because their parents weren't there. Kids who grew up maybe with parents who tried to give them what they needed, but they hadn't gotten what they needed in their early life. And so there's just this generational cycle that keeps people scraping by. And Compassion,
or even that their parents didn't have a dignifying job that paid livable wages for them to be able to just take care of their family in the way that we all want to.
Absolutely. And Compassion teaches people job skills and also leadership skills so that their whole communities can start to see the value in things like fair wages, right? And justice. I think that's so neat.
So I'm going to change the narrative on you just a little bit.
Yes.
So as Trove, we don't see ourselves as helping them because they have the skills, they have the craft, they have the creativity, like, is off the charts. So we're just making sure that we offer a product to our customers that reflect their values, which is just basic human dignity. And so we're not actually like, it just, I don't know how to say it in the right words, just that
it's not a help up, handout kind of thing. It's an appreciation for what they do. You know what? You're
yeah, and
exactly
it's
right to change that, and I appreciate that. Yes, it's just a recognition of the value that they're bringing and the ability to share that with others. Thank you.
yeah. So they, some of my favorite pieces come from Haiti,
Mm-hmm.
and they reached out to us last year and they said, we make goods from upcycled tires. And I was like, okay, like kind of show me what you do. Let's see about this. And they were like, okay, we've designed this beautiful leather bag. And I was like, okay, I mean, I hang with Noonday. Like they've got some really great leather bags. I don't know if we need one, but they sent this bag that they had designed to me. And the bottom of it, it's a beautiful leather tote, but the bottom of it has upcycled inner tube and tire on the bottom,
Mm-hmm.
which is like perfect for motherhood. Because
Yes.
anywhere you set that leather bag, you're worried, I just spent a lot of money on this and I can't just be setting it down anywhere. But they like so creative and designed this bag to where it's mom proof, it's kid proof, because they've like ensured the bottom is not going to just get all the water spots from wherever you set it. But that's the like, if we're looking for that instead of just quick fixes in the fashion industry, yeah, it's in giving a person their wages that they're due, that they have earned, that they've, you know, so I won't go on that soapbox. But
genius. I love that though. Hey, finish this sentence for me. Earlier, you said something that I didn't catch all of: fashion and ethical practices that are kind, or at least equitable, right, to people, kind to the planet and kind to, what was the third
animals.
one? Oh, really?
Animals.
Because you're using zero waste. You're actually using upcycled, these places that you're that are your sources are using upcycled products, things that have already been created once, so that you're not creating more pollution or more death. Awesome.
And because that actually disproportionately affects the communities that are making the products, than it does ours. And so, yeah, we have one factory that is zero waste, one factory that we work with that's completely solar powered, using upcycled tires. So yeah, and that's that kind to the planet. And then kind to animals, we do use leather, but it's sustainably sourced. And one way to think of it is like, if you think of a down coat, so we're not killing the birds to get the feathers. So we don't make coats, but that's a good example of it.
How do you get leather without, how's that? How is that sustainably sourced?
That's a great question, and above my pay grade to explain in a lot of detail. So you're saying you own a fashion brand, but you don't know how that happens. It's generally that we're not raising the cows to kill them to just get their leather, get their hide, but to, like, I think when they die,
animal kind of farming. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
It's not vegan. If you're vegan and you're worried about it,
sure.
It's not vegan. But it is. You're not just killing things for their decorative qualities.
And I don't think that they're killing them for things that they're using it once the animal has died.
Gotcha. Well, you know
I can look that up more.
Interesting conversation. No, that's all right. I hate to put you on the spot there, but that's actually probably a great time to just remind people, when you're put on the spot, when you have those tense moments, evaluate yourself. Have you suddenly started craving ice cream? You want to shut this person down and run away, and then switch to the appreciation, switch to the breathing, the resetting, because relationship is the big thing.
Yeah.
Right? Oh,
I've learned to own what I don't know as well. So.
Yes.
So I'll tell you what I know, but it's probably bigger than that.
That takes guts. I had to, my biggest challenge communication wise was I had to learn not to lie. Back in my 20s, I was always like, I'll say whatever people wanted to hear, right? And in my early 20s, God dealt with me about lying. But that over the next, decade or so required a whole lot of bravery that I didn't previously have, because I had to fess up to things sometimes. Sometimes I had to be honest about how I felt. Sometimes I had to be honest about disagreeing. Sometimes I had to be honest about what I needed, or what I could do, instead of just agreeing that I would get something done and knowing I couldn't. So, yeah, boy, when we start to practice these communication skills, whatever your challenge might be, um, it makes us stronger. It makes us tougher characters. I like that.
Yeah.
Kara, it's
sure.
such a pleasure to talk to you. Where can
Thank
people
you.
get a hold of you? It's Trove shop-trove.com, right? I put that in the chat, and put some of these other notes, but you are such a blessing, and I just hope that your business thrives. And I tell you what, if you are listening and you're in Tulsa, then you need to check out the Reflect group on Wednesday nights at Believers. And if your church isn't doing something like this, you probably need to talk to the people who are leading our group, Lauren and Zach Lindsay and Kara Moseby, because they have a real heart for something that I think God has a real heart for, helping Christians communicate well and deeply, in even when it's uncomfortable, to keep the relationship, because we are the body of Christ. Kara, thank you so much for being here tonight.
My pleasure.
And we will probably talk again, but I will be seeing everyone tomorrow with the One Moment Wiser devotional. If you have not heard, I am accepting submissions right now for the 3 a.m. book, When Divorce Keeps You Up All Night. This is going to be the next 31-day devotional in the series, and it is for those who are recovering from divorce. Somebody this Christmas is going to spend the first Christmas alone without the person they expected to spend the rest of their lives with. They need this book. So if you have a story of something specific that God helped you, maybe he helped you learn to communicate better, maybe he helped you find a healthy community, whatever it was that God helped you do that transformed your experience and brought you to the other side of divorce, the survival and thriving side, then I want to hear about it. So go to my website or just send me a message and tell me your story. God bless you all. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.